It's finally here. Super Bowl 59. Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs rematch. Stay tuned for expert NFL injury analysis, best bets, and of course, your favorite DGen parlays.
Here we go.
This Super Bowl edition of the DGen Docs on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code SGPNDOC to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Edge Boost. Earn up to $750 per month on your sports gambling transactions. Go to edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. And finally, we're brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Ooh, welcome, DGens, far and wide, to another edition of the DGen Docs. What is up, folks? I am one of your hosts here, the OG DGen Doc himself. More importantly, I am joined by my brother in degeneracy, Mr. Derek Bennett, a.k.a. Professor Locks. How we doing tonight, brother?
Doing okay. I wish I was actor trained or trained as a professional actor, because I wish I could cry on demand, because this is our last episode of the season.
This is, man. I mean,
look,
look,
we got one game left.
It's one game left. I was just talking offline. We haven't done an episode in almost 2 weeks, and it's felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to survive months of off season. Don't worry. We'll talk about all the things we've got prepared for that. But it's the last game. It is the final game of the 2024-2025 NFL season. And it is Super Bowl 59, a rematch of the Philadelphia Eagles and your Kansas City Chiefs there. Look, folks, it's pretty simple what we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about this game every way you could possibly talk about this game: left, right, sideways, upside down. We're talking offense. We're talking defense. We're talking even some special team stuff. We're going to have a great show. We're going to break this down. But before we get too far into it, let me say cheers to you folks. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Thank you for rocking with us all season. Let's make this a banger there. Feels good. All right, man. Feels good to be back. Now, since we've been away, we've missed a little bit of news. You know, there's some news in the NFL
quite a bit
that we are going to get to, absolutely. But before we do that, you know, let's talk about what did you do in your football list Sunday last week?
I don't even remember. I didn't do much. I did some schoolwork kind of stuff. Went to church. I went and did life stuff. I went to the grocery store. I didn't really do much. It sounds like you had a much more eventful Sunday.
Well, look, I think in an effort to not fall into a endless Sundays of without football, what the fuck do I do with my life? We made a little bit of an audible, and look, went over to a small town in Pennsylvania, where a living legend, the ninth wonder of the world himself, lays his little head, and that is none other than Mr. Punxsutawney Phil, baby.
Fuck that guy.
So for those who are not aware,
he can just scatter back in his hole.
He did not give us good news, but let me tell you this.
Yeah.
I know most people probably know what Groundhog's Day is. You probably heard of Punxsutawney Phil. I will say, you know, being in Virginia right now, I did ask some soldiers. They had no fucking idea who Punxsutawney Phil was. They thought I was cursing at him or doing some new slang term or whatever. But hey, most people know who he was. I don't think most people realize what the fuck happens on this Groundhog Day. Here's just a couple of pictures to kind of give you what was going on. I mean, this thing is a full-out music festival. It all starts at about 3 a.m. You get on some buses. We were sitting out there 2:15. I think we woke up. We were out there in 20-degree weathers, cold as shit, all to see a little groundhog. But I mean, let me tell you, They estimated like 40, 50 grand. I don't know about all that, but there was at least 15, 20,000 people in this field yelling for groundhogs. They got this whole inner circle. There might be some Illuminati shit going on, but let me tell you, it's a good time, but it's one of those things where it's a great time I will never do again. It probably took a couple years off my life. Maybe it's a little bit young again, but hey, if you ever need something to do on the week in between the Super Bowl and the playoffs, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania might just be your place.
I don't know about all that. It sounds like Punxsutawney just wants to get back in his hole and make some more other little groundhogs, other little fills, because he couldn't even stay out long enough to see his shadow and give me some hope that spring is around the corner. So
yes, Phil to not see his shadow at plus 100 did cash on Sunday. All right, let's get to some actual NFL news. I think the biggest news we could probably talk about is, Browns defensive end Myles Garrett has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. I know you definitely want to talk about this. You're hoping that he does anything but stay in the
AFC leave
North.
the AFC North as quick as possible because he is a game wrecker for sure. Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see what the Browns end up doing, because I mean they've already kind of dug their feet in and said, hey, he's not on the trade block. There's no way we're trading Myles Garrett. I think contract wise, he doesn't have any money left, any guaranteed money left, and he's starting to kind of work his way down in terms of pass rushers. That there's quite a few that have bigger contracts than he does at this point.
Yeah. Well, let me get your opinion on this. Just kind of came to my head here. So we got two players, premier players at their position, potentially number one in the league. Let me give you a trade proposal. Myles Garrett himself for Justin Tucker to the Cleveland Browns. I think he fits in the culture around there in Cleveland.
That is true. I don't know if the Baltimore Ravens would be willing to give up Justin Tucker in that leg, though. I just don't see it.
Look, for those who are not aware of what we're alluding to, a man who does not deserve a graphic.
And I'm not talking about his right leg.
A man who does not deserve a graphic. Justin Tucker found himself in some trouble there. Man, if that allegations are true, I've seen some people say the Baltimore Ravens put themselves in an awful contract. Justin Tucker had his worst year by far. He's got some, sexual inappropriate massage parlor stuff allegations. Yeah, if that's anywhat true, which it's hard to believe, it just comes out of thin air. He's a scumbag. Fuck that guy, and we'll see what happens if he's out of the league or not. Because no place in the NFL for that. Although it does make for some good locker room jokes. All right. Sure. Let's move on here. Before we do that, I got to tell you guys about some things we got going over here on SGPN. And look, folks, all year, the whole kind of the amount of time the SGPN's been a company, they're all about giving away free shit. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. We're running a free Squares pool for the Super Bowl, $1,000 winner take all for the final score square. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/squares to sign up today. That is sportsgamblingpodcast.com/squares. This is just too easy. I mean, it's absolutely free. All you have to do is fill out the little Google form, and then they'll send you an email of what your square is going to be. And then, it's just one winner take all, $1,000, $0 entry free, completely free. It's really a no-brainer. Make sure you do it as soon as possible, though, because the squares will fill up eventually. I think it's the first 100 people who sign up. So make sure you're one of those there over there. All right, man. So the way we're going to do this is we are going to the first segment is going to be a little bit about, these two teams have played before, right? 2022, the end of the 2022 season. They played in Super Bowl 57, that would be. So we're going to talk a little bit about some history, talk about some lessons learned, look at a little bit, hey, what were these teams in 2022 compared to 2024 to try to give us an idea of how this game is going to form for this season. And then the next segment is the big one. We're going to break the game down, and we're going to actually talk about what our best bets are. We'll finish with the DGen parlays, our DGen plays as always, and then we'll get on out of here, man. So let's dive right into it. I first got a couple of statistics for you. That game in 2020, obviously 38-35, Kansas City took home the W. I want to talk about Mr. Patrick Mahomes here for a second. Versus Vic Fangio, who is, of course, the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. They brought him in. He's been doing an amazing, amazing job. I don't think anybody could say differently on that. Now, in his career, Patrick Mahomes, I'm sure you guys have all seen this. He's 8-0. Patrick Mahomes is 8-0 against Vic Fangio, mostly on the Dolphins and the Broncos. Now, Vic Fangio was also brought in for this 2022 Super Bowl as an advisor for the Eagles. Kind of, I don't know how much role he had. But in the 8 games, he was the true defensive coordinator. Despite being 8-0, his defense has only allowed about 22 points per game. Where are you at with that? Because I think that this stat can be a little misleading as like Patrick Mahomes has absolutely dominated Vic Fangio, and more so like Patrick Mahomes beats a lot of teams.
Yeah.
And, when I looked into the numbers, at first I was like, oh, damn, maybe he has his number. And I looked at the numbers, 22 points per game.
Right.
It's not a ton.
And I would also add, like, this Philadelphia Eagles defense is better than any Broncos or Dolphins defense that I can remember in recent years when Fangio's been in those places, right?
Yeah.
So you add a probably better defense to 22 points per game. And, it sounds to me that the Broncos offense has sucked for most of the last decade, really.
Oh, absolutely.
And really the Dolphins hasn't been a whole lot better, until the last couple of years. So I think it's just one of those kind of funky stats, like you said, that like, yeah, he's undefeated against Fangio, but the other team's offense just can't score, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they averaged like 11 points per game or like 11.6 or something. So
yeah, I mean, the Chiefs defense, I mean, they've been really, really good over the last, 5 or 6 years as well, too. But I think it's just more one of those fluky things that, he plays okay against him, right? But he's not putting up gaudy numbers.
Yeah, I agree. Because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, man, he must own him. And then when you really kind of peel that onion layer back, it's like, I don't know. Like you're saying, it might just be more holistically the Chiefs were better than the Broncos and the Miami Dolphins at the time. Another quick thing, I think, depending on what role Fangio did play in the last Super Bowl that these two teams played, I mean, they did put up 38 points. Obviously, that would be the best performance. So that's where it's like, how much stake do you put in that? He wasn't the true defensive coordinator, but they did bring him in to be a consultant. So that one's a little hairy. Now, a stat that I don't think, there can be much arguing, and that really does show who Patrick Mahomes is as a player in the biggest moments. Patrick Mahomes versus number 1 pass defenses in the NFL. He's 3-0 against them. He's put up 37 points per game, 71% completion percentage, 2.7 average pass touchdowns, and a 1.85 rating, passer rating, that is. I mean, look, that's just really impressive. Obviously, the Eagles come in as the number 1 pass defense in the league. Who knows? I mean, that one, I was like, holy shit. Like, I think that just shows he really elevates his game for these big moments.
No doubt.
Again, it's a little bit, I don't love trends and just picking stats and kind of going from there, but just some kind of some interesting points to bring up. But I know you mentioned, a little bit of roster comparison. So I want to go through, quickly talk about some of the, what did the Eagles have in 2022 and what do the Chiefs have like compared to now, right? So I think we'll just do it by team here really quick. So Philadelphia Eagles in 2022, some of their highlights, right? Their RB1, Miles Sanders. Obviously, massive upgrade, as much as I hate him, to Benedict Barkley. Saquon Barkley, that is. Wide receiver 3 was Quez Watkins. Jahan Dotson, I feel that is kind of a wash at this point. You still had A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
You had A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. I don't really take too much there. The only other one I want to mention on offense is Jason Kelce, Hall of Fame center, arguably the best center of our generation, and Cam Jurgens, who has played well, but will be coming
beat up Cam Jurgens, right? Yeah.
So I think that's of note. And then on the defensive side, here's where we may differ, and I know there's some differing opinions in the public. Everyone is saying how much better this 2024 defense is than 2022. Now, I think that both were good defenses, but I think it's a bit outlandish to just say that this 2024 defense is miles ahead of this 2022 defense. Because if we remember, this 2022 defense had 70 sacks in the regular season. They had 4 players on their defensive line with 11 plus sacks. That's absurd. I mean, Hassan Reddick had 16 sacks himself. I'll quickly check this, but I'm pretty sure not a single Eagles player had over 11 sacks on the year. So
yeah, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure Josh Sweat had 8.5, and that was their highest.
Right.
So
let
me double check here.
You're right.
Postseason, right? So 4 guys with 11 plus sacks is absolutely absurd. Yeah, Josh Sweat led them this year with 8. So
Nolan Smith came on, in the last 3 games in the playoffs. He has 4 in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that this 2024 defensive line is scrubs. Sure. I just here I see some clear differences. I think the 2022 Eagles defensive line, especially from a pass rush perspective, was a very big step ahead. Now, on the flip side, I do think that the Eagles secondary is a lot better in 2024. Noted losses, look, they had safety Marcus Epps and nickelback Devontae Maddox starting, where now we fill in guys like Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Reed Blankenship. Zach Bond is probably one of the best linebackers they've had, in several years. So I do think that, I think that they're comparable, but I think to just flat out say that the 2022 Eagles defense was miles better than this 2024 defense, I don't know, man. I think the back end, you can make that argument. But that front 7, that pass rush of the 2022 team, let's not forget, that was a legendary pass rush. So I don't know. What is your takeaway, as far as major takeaways, Eagles 2022 to 2024?
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as upgrades versus downgrades in terms of position groups. I think one thing that you kind of have to look at in terms of sack numbers is just how they're playing defense and from a scheme standpoint, right? Fangio just doesn't blitz much. He doesn't necessarily go after the quarterback. He blitzes for most of the time. And, if you're doing that, you're not creating as much chaos and probably won't see as many sacks. But this Eagles defense just flies around and makes tackles on the spot. They don't allow those big catch and runs kind of thing. So, it'll be interesting to really see what the big difference is between this Kansas City offense, which I would say is also taken a little bit of a step back from that 2022, 2023 offensive standpoint. They have most of the same guys, but they definitely haven't been as explosive as they were 2-3 years ago. But yeah, no, from a defensive line standpoint, you're right. They don't necessarily pressure the quarterback, but from a run defense standpoint, they're pretty solid. And from a back end standpoint, I do think they've upgraded a little bit, bringing in Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell.
Oh, yeah. I think from the back end, I don't even think it's a question. I think they're a far better. Now, James Bradbury, people remember him in a bad light. He was a Pro Bowler that season. I'm not sure. I can't remember if he was. I don't think he was an All-Pro, but he did have an amazing season in 2022. So I don't want to throw that out. But Avonte Maddox and Marcus Epps, Cooper DeJean himself is much better upgrade. Now, you mentioned the Chiefs. Let's talk about them really quick because I actually do think that I agree they're not as explosive, but I do think from a pure skill and roster construction standpoint, I do think that this 2024 Chiefs offense has improved. And here's what I'm talking about. Their top 4 wide receivers, specifically wide receiver room, right? In 2022, their top 4 wide receivers coming into that Super Bowl, where their wide receiver number 1 was Juju Smith-Schuster. Number 2 was MVS, and then Justin Watson and Mecole Hardman. Where if we look now, even without Rashee Rice, we've got Xavier Worthy, we've got Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and then 3-4 we could say Hopkins or Juju. Sure. I do think they're a little bit more talented in the wide receiver room, right? I mean, it's kind of Patrick Mahomes' thing to kind of make it work with whoever the hell is out there.
Right.
But I do think that they have a little bit more talent. I think Xavier Worthy gives them a piece that they just did not have in that 2022. And then just really quickly with their defense, I just want to mention 3 rookies started for them in that Super Bowl. George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, and Leo Chenal. All starters still on the team. Now 3 years veterans, right? So I do think they can get a little bit of a boost there. And then their additions and losses were kind of balanced out. So they're mostly equal. But I do think that offensive wide receiver room and getting those rookies some experience, I do think they're a little bit better than that 2022 team. I'm curious where you're at with that.
Yeah, it'll be they've kind of threw me for a loop over the last couple of weeks, because going into the postseason, we thought Kansas City's rush defense was solid. And then Joe Mixon had a pretty good game. And then the Bills last week were able to move the ball on the ground. So, they've kind of threw us for a loop since the playoffs have started. Now their pass defense is really, really good with McDuffie and Jalen Watson and those guys in the back end. But from a total roster standpoint, defensively, we kind of know over the last 3-4 years, they've been able to keep all of their dudes basically, and basically continue to build around that defense. And they've become more of a defensive team over the last 2 or 3 years. Offensively, I completely agree. From a skill standpoint, wide receiver room has definitely upgraded. They have started to use the 2 tight end set a little bit more. Noah Gray's been getting a little bit more of a run. They've been trying to pound the rock a little bit more with Hunt and Pacheco. I think although there are a lot of similarities between that 2023 Eagles team and Chiefs team to now, I think scheme wise, things have changed a little bit over the last couple of years for both teams, really. The Eagles, looking back at that 2023 team, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith were the dudes. Miles Sanders did okay. He held his own, but he's nothing to Saquon. And then from the Chiefs standpoint, 2 years ago, this was a high-flying, explosive offense. Now it's a ground and pound, rely on your defense, and Mahomes, make those plays when needed.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I agree. I think it's going to makes for a really, really interesting matchup. Man, let's stop beating around the bush. Let's get to it. Before we do, we are going to get into our actual game breakdown, give up our best bets, end with the DGen. But before we do that, I got to tell you about our friends over at DraftKings. This is not the little itty bitty teeny tiny bowl. This is the Super Bowl 59. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. That's code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
We're also brought to you by friends over at Rhythm, the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds. Build your own model, copy one of the top-performing models from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build you a model. NFL picks, NFL props, college basketball, and NBA, Rhythm has it all. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, my friends, it's time. It is time to talk about Super Bowl 59. We
got ourselves a pick 'em here.
This line's moving, man. We made the graphic, You did make the graphic. It looked all nice. We were ready to go, and we checked again, and it went from Chiefs being favored by 2, 1.5. Now it's essentially a pick 'em here. So it's a tight one, and I think Vegas is kind of right on the line there. So you got the Chiefs as technically the away team. So I guess catching half a point, really just money line minus 115. Money line for the Eagles minus 105 the other way. So Eagles still a slight dog. But the money is obviously the line is moving towards Philadelphia. It is Sunday, February 9th, 6:30 p.m. at the Superdome there in New Orleans. Over-under sitting at 48.5. Was at 49, kind of dropped down a little bit. We're going to do it as we always do it, especially because it's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to tell you the injury situation for each team, and then Derek is going to break down how he sees this game going, and then I think we'll go right into our best bets there. So without further ado, your home Philadelphia Eagles, their injury situation is, it's mostly figured out. It's a little bit more muddy. On IR is still Nakobe Dean out for the year. He'll likely miss most of next year because I will talk about his backup in Oren Burks. I do think he'll play a big role in this game one way or another. Yeah. The others is, look, they're a little bit beat up on the interior offensive line. Left guard, Landon Dickerson, who stepped in at center last game, he was basically playing on one knee by the end of that game. He's an absolute warrior, an absolute stud for trying to finish that game, for going as much as he can. You saw him put a brace on, but he could barely put any weight on it. No real diagnosis on what's going on. Now, he hasn't practiced. They had 3 practices last week. He hasn't practiced, but he said immediately after the game he was going to play. The expectation is that he will play. It's just, I think he'll be a little bit limited. How limited he'll be, we'll kind of have to find out. Sure. The other guy here, Cam Jurgens, he was dealing with that back injury, kind of those spasms. Back injuries can be very tricky. He did not start the game, but he came to fill in. He filled in for Landon Dickerson, and he filled in pretty damn well. So I do expect, I think Jurgens is actually going to be at a little bit higher percentage than Landon Dickerson is going to be, considering he kind of finished the game. And he's already said, hey, my back feels good. I should be good to go. Now, for both these guys, there isn't re-injury risk. There is a little bit of re-injury risk. They are offensive linemen. You can clearly tell they're going to fight through shit. They're very, very, tough dudes. So I don't know if they'll absolutely leave the game, but I think it's foolish to think either of these guys are absolutely at 100%, even with the 2 weeks off. Landon Dickerson is really the one that I'm got some questions on because we just haven't heard a lot about what's going on there.
Yep.
Other news there, running back Kenny Gainwell left the game with a concussion. He also had a little bit of a knee injury. If it is just a concussion, he was at Media Row this week. He was out there doing interviews and stuff. If it was really that bad, he wouldn't be out there doing that. He's got 3 more days to clear the concussion protocol, really 4 more days. I do expect him to play, and I think he'll be just fine. And then really the big one is Brandon Graham. This one I'm a little bit like, what the fuck, man? So really quickly, because I don't want to spend too much time, I made a couple of videos on this. Brandon Graham completely tore his triceps tendon, right? So your triceps, obviously the tendon is what connects your muscle to your bone there. Required surgery. He had surgery, I think it was 3 December. So that puts him at about 10 weeks from when he had his surgery to when he would be playing in the Super Bowl. Now, a typical recovery timeline is 4 to 6 weeks. Most surgeon protocols don't even allow you to truly start strengthening the tricep until week 12. They activated him this past week at week 9. Now, yes, he was out there. He was running around. There's some videos floating around, not a ton of him hitting the sled bag and things like that. I find it almost impossible to believe that that he's going to be anywhere close to 100%, anywhere close. I don't even know how he's going to be able to really push off with that left arm there and that tricep. So this is going to be very interesting to see if he does play. Obviously, it's probably the last game of his career. So if he re-injures it and re-tears his tricep, it seems like he really doesn't give a shit. But I don't know, man. Because this is probably the biggest question mark, where are you at with this Brandon Graham injury situation?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said this is probably his last game of the career. Because if it re-ruptures, he's got all the time in the world to rehab that thing back together. I think it's just one of those things where this is obviously the biggest game of the year. he's just giving it a try. And I don't think he's going to have much there to really do anything with it. It'll be interesting to see if they try to like cast it, brace it, almost like lock it into where it is kind of a thing. Because, the brace is probably going to have way more strength trying to keep his arm extended than what his triceps going to be able to. I don't think he's going to be real effective. Will he dress? Will he be standing on the sidelines in full pads? Yes. I don't expect him to get much of a run in the game itself.
I absolutely agree. What I will say is I was putting this out and an Eagles fan was chirping back to me like they love to do. Someone did bring up the Terrell Owens injury from back in the day in the Super Bowl he played in, where he essentially played with the broken fibula and essentially torn medial ligament tendons in his ankle. Yeah. He kind of balled out, right? I get it. It's a completely different injury. I understand these guys are freak athletes, so nothing is impossible. Yep. But what I'm saying, final conclusion for Brandon Graham, I think he's a liability to his team. I think he's a liability to himself. He's out there. Don't think he's even close to 100%. And it's really not his fault. I mean, he's trying to do half of a rehab on a major surgery.
Yeah.
So that's the last we'll talk of Brandon Graham there, because I don't think he's going to have a major impact on his team. We're now going over to the Kansas City Chiefs, who are playing in the State Stadium. And show up. We wanted a fair game. Not exactly what he's referring to, but I think when we talk about Kansas City Chiefs, it's fair to mention, people maybe think some nefarious actions going on there with this Kansas City team and the referees. I don't know how much validity is to that, but let's talk about these Chiefs. All active players on their roster are fully practicing. The only guy who's really a question mark here for this game for the Chiefs side is Sky Moore. He's coming off the IR with an abdomen injury. He had some limited practices. He was listed as doubtful as their injury report they put out last week. We'll see if he's able to play. I don't really see him making an impact one way or another. Nico Remigio in the return game has been really electric for them. I don't think they switch him out there. And honestly, Sky Moore has been a very big disappointment. He's struggled with drops. He really hasn't done much. So really the Chiefs, everyone they've had the entire playoffs and most of the year, they're all healthy and they're all running it back. So Not a lot for them. Obviously, Rashee Rice still out for the season with them and probably some of next season. We will talk about him in the offseason. But now it's time, man. Let's break down this game. I want to see where you're at with it, and then tell me where your money's going to be.
Yeah, so going way back to our wild card episode, you asked me who are my Super Bowl teams, and one of them made it. One of them almost did, but I threw out the Bills and the Eagles. I'm all over the Eagles. I'm sitting on an Eagles Super Bowl ticket, so give me the Eagles on the money line. I got it at plus 105. Now we're sitting at that pick 'em, but. Give me the Eagles, and this is how they're going to do it. I think the Chiefs will try to lock down Saquon as much as possible. They have tried to throw us a little bit of a loop and allow a little bit more of a rushing attack over the last couple of weeks. Their rushing defense is still really, really solid. I think Saquon is still going to get some Saquon things. I don't think they're going to necessarily be able to stop Saquon, but I don't think the Chiefs are going to allow one guy to beat them. I think they're going to really put the emphasis on making Jalen Hurts try to beat them, just like they did 2 years ago. Excuse me. So I'm a big Jalen Hurts guy coming up Sunday. I think Jalen Hurts is going to do it through the air as well as on the ground, just like he did 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he threw for over 300 yards and rushed for 70. He had 3 rushing touchdowns in that game. He threw for another one. I think that's going to be a little bit different because Saquon is there. I think they do have a better rushing attack. They will give him more attempts. They will give him some chances to punch it in closer to the goal line. But give me Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. Give me Jalen Hurts to throw 2 passing touchdowns at plus 161. He threw for 300 against this Kansas City defense 2 years ago. 225. Easy money. I can't remember what I what I got that at. I think it was plus money, but I can't remember. I forgot to write that those odds down. But yeah, give me Jalen Hurts at over 225 passing yards. I'm a big Devontae Smith fan in this one. Again, AJ Brown has just not been that volume guy over the last month or so. So I do think Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert are going to be the highlights when it comes to this Eagles passing attack. Goddard is just too chalky at this point. Everybody's kind of on the whole Kansas City can't defend the tight end. Goddard's numbers are starting to sneak up a little bit. So give me Devontae Smith over 60 receiving yards. And then give me AJ Brown's under 5.5 receptions. He's only hit this one time in the last 4 games. Last week or 2 weeks ago, last game against the Washington Commanders, who he just plays really, really well against. So I think this passing attack has started to shift towards Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert a little bit more than AJ Brown. From a Chiefs standpoint, I like the running backs. I like both of them. Kareem Hunt has been that guy a little bit more. He's been getting a little bit more of the volume. So give me his anytime touchdown. I do think Pacheco gets a little bit more run in this game. He's been back for a little while longer, fully able to rehab his injury. So give me his 25 plus rushing yards at minus 100. And then I think that was really all I took Chiefs wise. But yeah, give me Jalen Hurts as the MVP after he brings home a win 27-21.
27-21 with the final score prediction. Okay.
27-21.
It's interesting. So to circle back real quick, Hurts plus 225 plus passing yards, plus 115 there was the price on that. So I will say, to be nice, if the Philadelphia Eagles somehow figure out how to win this game, I think Jalen Hurts does have to do it. So I do like that MVP price there. Obviously, it's now close to a pick'em to get to plus 350. Yes, you're competing against Saquon Barkley, but I think Hurts.
It's an MVP award. MVP awards are meant to go to quarterbacks. I think Absolutely. It's just one of those things where you just have such a value at plus 350. I think Saquon's at like plus 200 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is an MVP award. MVP goes to the quarterback.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. So I do think there is value there. However, funny enough, for the exact reasons that you gave on, how you see this game going, that is why I'm all over the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, what are we doing? It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. 2 weeks to prepare against Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. So I agree. I think that we're going to have to go and, hey, they're going to have Spags, one of the best defense coordinators. I don't understand how he's not a head coach.
Hold on. You're telling me that you're not going to bet on the Philadelphia Eagles?
Cry, Eagles, cry.
Remind the folks who your fandom really, really goes towards here.
Yeah, for those that don't remember, New York Giants fan. Just having a grand old time over here watching Benedict Barkley.
So you're betting on something that has never happened in all of eternity.
Was that Jalen Hurts winning a Super Bowl?
No.
Or is that Nick Sirianni winning a Super Bowl?
The Kansas any team winning 3 in a row.
Oh, okay. I think I'm taking Patrick Mahomes. I'm taking Andy Reid over Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. But no, I do think you had a really good breakdown of how this is going to be. They're going to have to figure out how to muck it up and, really crowd that line of scrimmage. And Spagnuolo's blitz packages is going to be what has to happen, whether it's run blitz or whether it's, to get some penetration in the backfield, or really I think it's going to be Jalen Hurts. And I think it's going to be that interior offensive line. Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, they've been really good. Not quite as dominant as they were in the past, but still really good. Not really concerned about them. But it's Cam Jurgens, it's Mekhi Becton, it's Landon Dickerson. Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson, a little bit limited, a little bit beat up. And they just haven't been as solid of a unit as the Eagles are used to with Jason Kelce. Whether it's protections, whether it's moving pieces, whether it's the injuries, you can get pressure on this Eagles offensive line. that used to not be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Spags is going to get exotic with his blitzes. I think they're going to be able to fluster Jalen Hurts. And I think that Jalen Hurts, when we talk about that 2020 Super Bowl, whether it's the offensive coordinator, whether it was him being healthy, he was just processing at a much better speed. He's holding on to the ball way too long. Yes, he can do things on the ground. I will talk about that in a little bit, but I'm all over Kansas City. I think Spagnuolo is able to muck things up. I think he's able to confuse Jalen Hurts. And I ultimately think, 1 or 2 turnovers. I think Hurts does get back onto his interception train. And I think he just takes too many sacks, and it's just too much. I think that, they get behind the sticks and they take Saquon out of it. And that's the only way you're going to have success against this Eagles offense. So it falls down to, I think these rosters are comparable. It's the head coach and it's the quarterback. I don't think Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are close to Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. Despite the Eagles maybe having a better roster, I think the quarterback and the head coach just matter that much. But getting into it, the other bets that I like here, under 48.5, minus 108. I do think it's an under. I think you have two teams that are very prone to long drives. I think that, it's going to be a lot of very long drives, methodical, kind of moving down the field. The Eagles defense, like you mentioned, does not allow you to get over the top. They really do not allow explosive plays. Neither does Kansas City. I think both these teams are going to have to be very efficient and have long drives to all the way execute. Obviously, the Eagles are not afraid to go for it on 4th down and potentially come away with no points. I mean, we watched that Bills-Chiefs game, and one of the things that was apparent was the Chiefs' game plan for that Buffalo QB sneak that was almost as effective as the Eagles. Now, I understand it wasn't the exact same as the tush push. I understand that Jalen Hurts and Saquon squat a bajillion pounds. But 2 weeks to prepare, man. I think when you give these better coaches time, I think Nick Sirianni's sitting there with, a thumb up his ass. And I think Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo are really getting after it. So, yeah, I do think that this is going to be a defensive game on both fronts. I will talk about my final score prediction here at the end. A couple of these I'm going to rattle off really quickly. Mahomes over rush attempts and over his rush yards. It was around 29.5. It's around 6.5, 5.5. These lines are changing a ton, guys. So I'm not going to spend all the time getting into the weeds of it. Because by the time you're listening to this, it probably is going to be changing too, right? Everyone's betting on the Super Bowl, especially as we get closer. But I do like Mahomes, especially with the rush attempt. You obviously have the kneel downs built in, but he looked really good against Buffalo. He looks completely healthy. He was on a mission, and it's the big moments. He's hit this number, 5.5, 6.5. He's hit it, both those numbers in these past 2 payoff games. I think when it matters, he's going to get down to it. I am drinking a little bit of the Goddard Kool-Aid there. I picked him up at 47.5 earlier. I know he's around 52.5. I still like him at 52.5. I do think he potentially is – I'll get to this a little later. I think he potentially has the best game from a receiving standpoint for the Eagles. Another guy I like for the receiving game, Samaje Perine, coming out of the backfield, over 7.5 receiving yards. I think that one of these things where Nakobe Dean, inside linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles, he is no longer there. Oren Burks is the guy who's replacing him. He's played really well since he's had to replace him, but he's a 7-year veteran who's never had over 50 tackles in a regular season, and he got absolutely cooked in the Super Bowl. He came in for Dre Greenlaw after Dre Greenlaw tore his Achilles. He tried to cover. I mean, Travis Kelce went 9 for 9 and had almost 100 yards and a touchdown just when Oren Burks was covering him. I think he's a bit of a liability in the coverage game. And I think that Samaje Perine is that 3rd down back who can take advantage of some of those easy yards coming out of the backfield. So I do like Samaje Perine there. To get a little bit cute with a kicking prop, give me Harrison Butker over 7.5 kicking points. He's been 100% on field goals and extra points this playoffs, 9 for 9. I talked about it. The Eagles defense is really good. As much as I like the Chiefs in this game, I don't know how many touchdowns are going to be scored either way. I think I can trust Butker a little bit more than Jake Elliott. I think the team trusts Butker more than Jake Elliott. The Eagles, if they're in a 4th and 2, or if they're anywhere kind of 4th and less than 5 in that no man's land, they're going to go for it. I think the Chiefs do settle for some field goals. They have a little bit more faith. So give me Butker there. Then I'm going to talk a little bit of defense. I will echo your Jalen Hurts rushing attempts. I do like him to have a little bit on the ground. I think 9.5 at plus money right now is a gift. I do like for all those reasons, and that tush push, man. They'll run it fucking 5 times a game.
He had 15 rush attempts 2 years ago.
Yeah, I just think that, he's going to have to use his legs. So I love that play from you there. Some defensive stuff, because I love defense. I've got 2 tackles and then some sack props here. Reed Blankenship over 4.5 solo tackles at plus 118. He's got 17 solo tackles for the 3 games of the playoff. Obviously, a little bit over 5 tackles he's averaging there. I think he's going to have to cover Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. I think he's going to have to cover these tight ends and these guys out of the backfield who are going to have plenty of touches. So I think that he's going to, have to step up and make these tackles. And then for the other side, the Chiefs, Chamari Connor over 3.5 solo tackles at plus 35. Plus 135, and over 1.5 assists at was around plus 100. He's also the nickel back. Trent McDuffie's kind of bumped outside, opposite side Jalen Watson. Shamari Connor's really worked in that slot. I think you talked about Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert out of there. Whether it's Jalen Hurts coming out of the backfield tackling Saquon, he's a guy who likes to stick his nose in there, and he's gonna have to. He's gonna absolutely have to make tackles, whether it's on Saquon, Dallas Goedert, or Devonta Smith. So I think he's one of the guys the Eagles are really going to try to get after there. For the sacks, because I do think sacks are going to be one of those areas where there's going to be a lot in this game. Nolan Smith is the guy I absolutely love. He's at over a quarter of a sack, was at plus 104 earlier today. And then on the other side, it's Tershawn Wharton, a guy who's had 7 sacks on the year. He's really been kind of lightening up, and he doesn't have the attention that Chris Jones has. I talked about that interior line of scrimmage there for the Eagles. I think that's where you have a vulnerability. So give me Tershawn Wharton over a quarter of a sack at plus 227. And then a couple fades here. Give me Hollywood Brown under 41.5 receiving yards and A.J. Brown under 71.5 receiving yards, minus 110 each way. You talked about A.J. Brown, how he's been a bit limited. He could have one long catch, but I really like Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. I think they're 2 of the best cornerbacks in the league. So I think they get in his head a little bit. And A.J. Brown just doesn't make this offense go anymore. It runs through Saquon and it runs to the middle of the field, right? Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. It's just not the strong suit. It's not the matchup I think the Eagles will be able to exploit. And then Hollywood Brown, as much as they've tried to get him on, he has not hit 40 yards really at any point in the season. So give me that Hollywood Brown under there. All right, man. Obviously, talked about a lot.
On 2 sides of this one.
I know. We are on different sides. But where we can align and where we will have to align is with Underdog Fantasy. I'll talk about Edge Boost in a second, but Underdog Fantasy, that's right. The big game is coming this Sunday, and Underdog has you covered. New customers get a Travis Kelce free pick if they sign up before the big game. Plus, Underdog site-wide no sweat entry is live. That's right, a free $10 entry, no sweat you can use over there. So, look, we like Underdog so much. We're going to give you a pick 'em. Sign up with promo code SGPNDoc to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPNDoc. All right, my friend, where we do agree on is our Underdog slip that we always give out as a show. We both talked about this. I'll let you do the Eagles, and I'll finish with the Chief.
Sure. So Jalen Hurts higher than 9.5 rushing attempts is a dead giveaway for me, at least. He had 15 rush attempts 2 years ago. They've added that tush push way more recently. If they get a couple kneel downs at the end, it's a bonus, but I think the higher 9.5 rush attempts is a given. Let's go A.J. Brown lower than 5.5 receptions. We've already touched on that as well. He just hasn't been getting the volume that he has in past years or even earlier in this year. So give us A.J. Brown lower than 5.5 receptions.
Yeah, and we're going to round this out with Patrick Mahomes higher than 6.5 rush attempts. You're getting a little bit of plus juice here for this one. I talked about it. He's had 7 and 11. It's a big game. He's healthy. Yep. The Eagles, give him credit. I know they're not the 2022 team, but their team can get some pressure. Jalen Carter coming through the middle, Nolan Smith from the outside. I think Mahomes, they're also calling more design stuff for him. Obviously, you get the kneel downs, whether at half or where I think is going to be coming at the end of the game. I just think Patrick Mahomes is going to be a very willing runner. He understands in these big moments what he has to do to get the first down, to get in the end zone. So I really like Patrick Mahomes there. So that's Jalen Hurts higher than 9.5 rush attempts, AJ Brown lower than 5.5 receptions, and Patrick Mahomes higher than 6.5 rush attempts. $17 plays you almost $90 over there on Underdog. So again, promo code SGPN Doc. That'll get you up to $1,000 in bonus cash. All right, my friend, best bets, DGen plays, and we are out of here. And that's a wrap for the 2025 season. I will start us off here. Obviously, don't have to spend too long because we just went through these. But KC -1.5, money line -0.5, whatever the fuck you want it, wherever you got it, anytime, anywhere. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs to make history, to pull off the three-peat, and to reassure and remind everyone in Philadelphia where the fuck they stand in the total poll of the NFL. All right? I've been hearing a lot of chirping. I'm not a Chiefs fan, but you guys only got one Super Bowl. It took you this long to get one. You're going to stay at one. That's how it is. Really, it's simple, though. From an unbiased perspective, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes against Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. That's it for me. Under 48.5, I think both these defenses are really good. I think both these offenses, although good, neither really explosive. I understand Saquon can pop at any time. I don't think, you paid the Rams rush defense and the Commanders rush defense, some of the worst in the NFL. I don't think it's going to be quite that easy for him to be ripping off these 60, 70-plus yard runs. So I do think both these offenses are going to have to work, and I think that Eagles are going to go for it on fourth down. Chiefs are going to settle for some field goals. That's going to push this game under the 48.5. Patrick Mahomes over 5.5 rush attempts. Look, we just talked about it, 6.5. Obviously at 5.5, only -124, and we're not even paying that much juice here. I absolutely love it. I think he gets closer to double digits. I think 9 is kind of his floor for this one. I think he's a willing runner when he has to be, and he's completely healthy. And then I can't not talk about Kareem Hunt. I have given you Kareem Hunt anytime touchdown for 2 straight weeks in a row. Not only has he hit the anytime touchdown, he's hit the first touchdown in both of the games they played. I love Kareem Hunt. I'm going to continue to tell you how much I love Kareem Hunt. He is their running back number 1. He will find the end zone because that is just what Kareem Hunt does. Give me Kareem Hunt anytime touchdown +140. All right, where you at, brother?
So let's talk about the Eagles here now that you've talked about the Chiefs way too much. Give me the Eagles on the money line with the points. I don't know where the line is at this point. Give me the Eagles, right? And it's one of those things where, yes, this is a rematch. Yes, the Chiefs have won the last 2. If we look back through history on Super Bowl rematches, I mean, the last time this happened, Seattle did end up defeating the Denver Broncos in 2. But then after that, New England came back and beat the Packers after the Packers won the first one. The Cowboys delivered their third Super Bowl defeat to the Bills, but then the Bills came back and won. Going back to the Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers won the first one. Dallas Cowboys won the next one. So we're starting to see this trend that in most Super Bowl rematches, the team that won the first one does not necessarily win the second one. So give me the Eagles on the money line. We've talked about the second one multiple times, but Jalen Hurts over 9.5 attempts. He had 15 the last time these teams played. I think one thing that we haven't touched on is zone read stuff. I think that the Chiefs are going to be crashing down on Saquon, and Jalen Hurts is gonna have to pull that and really take over this game on his own. AJ Brown under 5.5 receptions. He's not getting the volume that he used to get. But I do like Kareem Hunt down around the goal line at +140. It's just too good of a number not to smash in this situation.
Yeah. Look, man, your last 3 bets are spot on. I will be tailing all of those, and I will leave that dirty piece of shit up top. All right, we're going to talk about our DGen parlays. It's only fitting that the last thing we speak to you about for this 2024-2025 season is how to break the bank with these nice DGens only plays. And the first one for me, I've talked about it. I'm going to talk about it again. Kareem Hunt, first touchdown. He scored the first touchdown in the past 2 games. His anytime touchdown hits, his first touchdown hits. You start off the Super Bowl with a fat positive profit in your wallet. That's it, man. I love Kareem Hunt. I think he's going to get the first touchdown.
I'll smash my John Hancock on that one.
I mean, dude, I don't understand I understand the numbers went down. I mean, we got it at plus 180 last week, almost 10 to 1, 11 to 1 for the first touchdown. But it's just, I get it's chalky, but it's just what happens. They give it to him around the goal line. He is their goal line back. All right, moving on. The player to lead the game in receiving yards, Dallas Goedert, plus 850. He leads the Philadelphia Eagles by about 60 yards in yardage for the playoffs right now. He is the go-to guy, and he's got the best matchup. I understand that everyone and their mom is talking about Dallas Goedert because it makes too much sense, man. Chiefs struggle against the tight end. Hurts clearly has a great chemistry with Dallas Goedert right now. We've seen his ability after the catch, and this is a little bit of he's about the only receiver I'm high on in this game. I don't think there's going to be a ton of passing yards for either team. So I really like Dallas Goedert at plus 850. I think Devonta Smith is another one at 6 to 1 that you could potentially talk me into. But I think Goddard ultimately is the guy. I think the Chiefs just simply spread it around too much. And I don't think A.J. Brown has a great of a game as people are thinking, like we talked about. Samaje Perine, I've talked about him coming out of the backfield, 25 plus receiving yards at plus 527. Just think it's too crazy of a price. He is their third down back. He is their lead guy out of the backfield there for them. And I think that Oren Burks has a definite possibility to be a liability in coverage. So I love Samaje Perine, 25 plus receiving yards at plus 527. And then I've got to end with a defensive play. Drue Tranquill over a quarter of a sack, plus 410. I will throw out as a little bit of a caveat, if you want to go for another blitzing linebacker, Leo Chenal, plus 910. He had a sack last game. But Drue Tranquill, I'm really thinking about blitzing linebackers. I'm thinking about guys. I think Spags is going to blitz Hurts. I think he's going to send him exotic looks. I think these linebackers are going to be able to get home, especially on the interior offensive line with some of those injuries. And I think they're going to cause some disruption. So Drue Tranquill at plus 410. He's got 2.5 sacks on the year. So I like him to get another one there. And that rounds out my DGen plays. What about you?
Yeah, I got a couple. Small parlay and a little bit of a fun parlay that I'll be just watching all game for some of this stuff to happen. But if Jalen Hurts throws more than 275 yards, he did this the last time they played, and he throws a touchdown to one of these three guys, I'm making money. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. A.J. Brown, it's 8 to 1. Devonta Smith, 10 to 1. Dallas Goedert, 14 to 1. So I bet all three. Plus, I bet the Jalen Hurts 2 touchdowns as well. So those 2 touchdowns got to go to somebody. And most likely, it's going to be to one of these 3 dudes. So if Jalen Hurts, takes over the game like I expect him to do, I expect to make money on a couple of those. But then the second one, like I said, this is just kind of a fun one for me. Ended up being 30 to 1. If no team scores 3 unanswered times, that's one. Philly to win by 1 to 6. So trying to, hit that little window there. A successful 2-point conversion sometime in the game. Doesn't matter who does the 2-point conversion. And then both teams to score in the first quarter. So I guess if one team doesn't score in the first quarter, this makes this a little bit shorter than I expect. But I do expect this to get out of the gate running a little bit.
Well, for your sake, I hope you get to sweat all the way until the end, until the Chiefs kick the game-winning field goal, and then at least you got the sweat out of it. But no, I like it. I will say, as much as I am on the Chiefs, I do think that your angle of if the Eagles win this game, Jalen Hurts has to have a day, particularly, both on the ground and through the air. I think that's an absolutely correct assessment. I don't think he can do it. That's why I'm on the other side. But I do think that, if the Eagles do get this done, Jalen Hurts has to step up.
Yep.
So, yeah, man. Hey, look, it was a fun show. Spending about 60 minutes talking about one football game. It's the Super Bowl, man. It is the last game of the NFL season. Really quick, I just want to, thank you guys. Again, this was our first season. As you could probably tell, we learned a lot the show changed a bit from when we started it back in August to this episode now. So we would appreciate for you guys, one, obviously, we do appreciate any likes, subscribes, things like that. But if you have any feedback for us as far as, hey, what did you like? What segment did I really appreciate? Or, hey, this one, you probably want to throw that out, never do that again. Let us know, because next season, we're going for even higher heights. We hit the 100 subscriber mark. We did the giveaway. I think next season, the goal is 1,000, right? And we're going to keep trying to build from there. But at the end of the day, we are just trying to have a great community, talk ball, give you guys a little bit of our insight from a medical perspective.
And this isn't the last time you're going to be hearing from us before next season. We'll probably throw a couple episodes out around draft time. I've been starting to fill out my mock draft things when I get a couple extra minutes, if I'm sitting on the bike or whatever, pedaling away. Might as well, fix the Pittsburgh Steelers while I'm at it. So we'll do a few things around draft time to, fix our fancy of a little bit of football in a month or two. But yes, any support, any feedback, greatly appreciated. Smash all the follows, likes, all of the things on X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Still share it out to all your friends, coworkers, family members. We greatly appreciate all the support.
Yeah, and like Derek mentioned, I think one of the things we're definitely going to look into is I think some things that could be interesting is getting into a little bit of what we'll call case studies about these guys coming off major injuries. Guys like, Nick Chubb just went out for the year again. Rashee Rice, some from off the top of my head. Yeah. The rookie out of Carolina, Jonathan Brooks. Now he's coming off his second ACL tear, right? Yeah. So some of those kind of interesting, more significant things. How is it going to impact, especially for you guys that do love best ball and trying to get into football? We'll take a little bit of time off. Everybody deserves a little bit of a break. And then we're going to get back to it and find different ways to, one, just talk ball, because that's what we love to do. But all right, folks, we are going to get out of here. Do you got anything for the good people before we hop on out for one last time this NFL season?
You got one more chance to bring home the bacon. Might as well throw it all on the Eagles.
Absolutely not. Let's go, Chiefs. Let's make history. And more importantly, let's keep these Eagles fans in the gutter with their one lonely Super Bowl. All right, folks, you know what they say. A lock a day keeps the bookie away. And here at the DJ Docs, we've got your prescription. From both of us here at the DJ Docs, we with you a wonderful, wonderful Super Bowl. And we will see you next time. We are out of here. And don't forget to
let it ride.
What's up, DJs? Doc here. As a proud member of the U.S. Army and a lover of football, sometimes those two things cross over on here. But as you probably already know, as a lowly captain, these are just my opinions. These are not opinions that are representative of the entire DoD or the U.S. Army. The same thing goes for any references to any commercial products or hyperlinks. Again, that does not constitute an endorsement from the DoD or the Army. I hope you enjoyed the show, and as always, let it ride, baby.